Lance Corporal Adam Ramos enlisted in the Marines right after finishing high school in a small town in upstate New York. He wanted to see more of the world and learn practical skills. Boot camp was tough, but gave him direction and confidence. After a couple of years, he ended up stationed at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, where the thick forests, swampy marshes, and coastal inlets became part of his daily life. He had heard stories about strange sightings in the woods, scratches on trees, odd smells at night, but nothing concrete to really care or think about, at least not at first. In his second year at Camp Lejeune, Adam noticed a few particularly unsettling signs. One night, he led a group of younger Marines on a basic land navigation exercise. They moved through thick brush with only flashlights. At one point, Adam felt like something or someone else was out there with him. A few recruits said they saw a shape move behind a tree, but given the nature of what they were doing, it didn't seem suspicious. Later that week, he found a bent steel chain near a generator that was supposed to be locked up. The bend was too intense to have a simple explanation, and nobody remembered any equipment that could have caused such damage. Another time, Adam saw claw-like marks on a metal shed, but again, without much to go on, they were forgotten quickly. Adam tried not to dwell on these moments, but eventually he mentioned them to a staff sergeant named Phelps, who had been stationed at Lejeune for years. Phelps admitted hearing locals talk about a strange creature in the marshes, but nobody ever found solid evidence. Phelps basically just said that new recruits always got spooked by something, since their nerves were high. Adam started wondering if things were connected somehow, but he kept that to himself. One morning, Adam was out for a run along a trail that cut near a swampy part of the base. The place always felt damp, and the air smelled like rotting leaves. While he jogged, he heard the sound of footsteps behind him. They were irregular, not in the steady rhythm of a person. When he turned to look, he saw only mist and some faint movement in the reeds. He called out, expecting maybe another Marine, but got no response. The fog shifted, and whatever was there vanished. A few weeks later, Adam's platoon prepared for an overnight field exercise aimed at practicing navigation and stealth. They were a small group, just 5 Marines, including Adam and a senior Marine named Sergeant Crisp, who was there to evaluate them. They planned to move from one checkpoint to another over 2 nights, traveling mostly after dark. On the first day, they set up a small camp near the New River Inlet. It was a standard operation. They carried minimal gear and planned to rely on the surrounding environment for cover. The area was a mix of thick woods and tidal marshes, known to be tricky to navigate. That first night, Adam took the final watch, from 0300 to 0500. He liked the stillness before dawn because it gave him time to listen to the forest. While he circled their camp, he noticed a foul odor. It reminded him of raw fish mixed with decaying plants. He scanned the tree line with his flashlight but saw only tangled branches and damp ground. The smell lingered longer than seemed normal, then faded away. He filed that away as another odd moment. The next morning, they moved deeper into the woods, following a narrow stream. Private Mills, who was younger and inexperienced, pointed out strange footprints in the soft mud. They were 3-toed impressions, larger than a man's foot, but shaped oddly, almost reptilian. The spacing indicated something bipedal, or at least able to walk with a stride. Mills asked Adam what kind of animal could leave prints like that, but Adam didn't have an answer. He took a few photos with a small camera they carried for documentation. Nobody openly said they were spooked, but the mood shifted. They all watched the forest more closely after that. By evening, they reached their second site and set up a hasty position in a dense patch of forest. The night navigation exercise was supposed to start after sunset. Adam checked maps and coordinates with Crisp, making sure they knew their route. The plan was to head southeast through swampy terrain and reach their final checkpoint by dawn. The group packed up when darkness fell, using only red lens flashlights to keep their presence low-key. The air was thick with humidity, and every step in the undergrowth felt slow. Around 2100 hours, they started moving in single file. Adam led with the compass, Crisp followed close, and the others stayed tight. The forest was silent except for crickets and the occasional rustle of leaves. They had practiced these maneuvers enough to stay disciplined, but Adam couldn't shake the feeling that something watched them. Every so often he heard a soft clicking or croaking noise in the distance. It was faint but stood out because he'd never heard anything like it in the local wildlife. He paused now and then, trying to pinpoint the source, but as soon as they stopped, the noise would stop too. About an hour into their march, they reached a small, marshy area. Logs lay half submerged and the ground squelched under their boots. Private Mills suddenly slipped, letting out a quick yelp. The team paused to help him. While Adam shined a flashlight toward Mills, a loud splash echoed from just beyond their beam of light. Everyone froze. The flashlight picked up the ripples, but no clear silhouette. Adam saw a glimpse of something broad and dark sink behind a fallen log. He couldn't tell if it was an alligator or something else. Crisp signaled for them to douse the lights and stay silent. They waited, hearts pounding. Another splash came, then faded. After a tense few minutes, they decided to keep moving. The group made it to higher ground without further splashes, but the mood had changed. They whispered to each other, trying to stay alert. Adam's nerves were on edge. He wasn't sure if they had just startled a large gator or if it was the unknown creature people talked about. The smell returned briefly, the same fishy odor. Everyone noticed it this time. Nobody had a solid explanation, so they pushed forward, hoping to reach their checkpoint by midnight. They emerged onto a narrow dirt path that cut through the woods. It was easier to move there, but being in the open also made them feel exposed. They decided to take a short break for water and to confirm their location on the map. That's when the odor hit them full force. It was overpowering. A hissing or low croaking sound echoed off to their left. They all turned, flashlights flicking on despite the risk of revealing themselves. In the dim beams, they saw something crouched near a cluster of low shrubs. It stood roughly as tall as a man, but had a thicker body and arms that looked too long. Its skin looked wet and had a reflective sheen. The head was wide, with eyes that glowed when the flashlights hit them. It stared back, making a faint clicking sound. For a moment, nobody moved or spoke. Then it let out a deeper hiss and moved sideways, disappearing into the brush. Everyone felt a surge of adrenaline. Crisp signaled them to hold position. Adam noticed his own heartbeat was pounding in his ears. They waited, scanning the tree line. The hissing started again from a different angle, as if the creature was circling them. The group decided to move forward, flashlights on, to keep it from getting too close without them noticing. They formed a tighter formation and continued down the path. Adam saw the outline again at one point, a dark shape darting between trees. The tension was immense. They had no real weapons loaded with live ammo because this was a training exercise. Even if they had, none of them knew what they were dealing with. Eventually, the sounds faded. The odor lingered, but became weaker. They reached their checkpoint near 0100, set up a small perimeter, and tried to collect themselves. Everyone talked in hushed tones, sharing what they saw. Opinions varied. Some thought it might be a mutated animal. Others considered the local folklore about a swamp creature. Crisp took notes. He looked rattled, but forced himself to stay calm for the sake of the team. They spent the rest of the night on edge, sleeping in shifts. Around dawn, Crisp used the radio to contact the base, keeping the details vague. He just said they had encountered large wildlife and needed advice on how to proceed. The base told them to carry on and report back in person the next day. Adam sensed that Crisp was frustrated by the lack of immediate support, but they had no choice but to follow orders. After a restless morning, they planned their route back. They hoped to take a more direct path and avoid the marshy areas. but thick vegetation and water obstacles made that difficult. They had to pass near the same swamp that had given them trouble the previous night. They set out in the early afternoon, hoping to get through the area before dark. The walk was slow. They felt every snap of a twig or rush of water might signal the creature's presence. Halfway through, they found more footprints near a water's edge. These were similar to the ones from the previous day, three-toed, wide, and spaced out like a biped. Some prints led into the water, others into a patch of tall reeds. Adam took more photos. Mills asked if they should try to follow them. Crisp shook his head, saying they needed to stick to the original plan. None of them wanted to risk a direct confrontation. They were trainees on a field exercise, not an official tracking party. They pushed through dense brush until they found a dry spot to rest. The air smelled of wet leaves and insects buzzed around them. Everyone drank water and tried to eat, but the tension took away their appetites. Crisp said they'd have to cross a stretch of water about half a mile ahead. The idea of wading through swampy ground made them uneasy. Adam and Crisp discussed alternatives but found none. They decided to be quick and move in pairs across the area. When they reached that swamp crossing, it was late afternoon. Tall cypress trees rose from shallow water. The place was shady, with patches of sunlight breaking through. They worked carefully, stepping around submerged roots. The water was knee-deep in some places, waist-deep in others. The group stayed close, scanning for any sign of movement. About halfway across, Adam thought he saw ripples in the water to his left. He held up his hand, signaling everyone to freeze. A few tense seconds passed. Then they heard that same hissing noise echo off the trunks. Something large splashed through the water about 20 yards away, out of sight behind thick cypress knees. Crisp told them to speed up. They formed two lines and moved as fast as they could without creating chaos. As they approached the far side, the water around them seemed to churn. Adam saw a shape in his peripheral vision. He turned, and for a moment he saw the creature's upper body. Its skin was a dull greenish brown. It had a broad chest and arms that ended in webbed hands, each tipped with sharp-looking claws. The head had an almost amphibian structure with a wide mouth and ridges above the eyes. It stared at him, then sank beneath the surface, leaving a swirl of muddy water. Adam yelled for everyone to keep going. Mills slipped again, and the water surged around him. Private Cook, who was closest, grabbed Mills by the collar to haul him up. A guttural croak resonated through the swamp, and everyone felt panic rise. They scrambled, trying not to fall, until they reached firmer ground. Once on solid land, Crisp did a head count. All 5 were there, shaken, dripping, and confused. They turned to see if the creature would follow, but the water settled. A few bubbles broke the surface and then disappeared. They continued at a brisk pace. The sun was going down, and they didn't want to be stuck out there in the dark again. The quickest route back to the base roads involved another stretch of trail through dense forest. They pressed on, hearing rustles in the foliage, not sure if it was the creature or just the normal sounds of nature. Eventually, darkness fell. They had covered good ground, but still had a ways to go. They decided to push through rather than camp again. Nobody wanted to sleep near that swamp. As night set in, the crickets grew louder. The group switched to flashlights, keeping them on a low setting. Tension remained high. Every few minutes, someone would say they heard a branch snap or saw movement in the corner of their eye. Adam tried to stay focused on navigation, but his thoughts kept drifting to that glimpse of the creature in the water. Its eyes had looked almost human in their intelligence. He wondered if it was territorial or if it was curious. The sound it made was not like any animal call he knew. They kept a steady pace, not wanting to linger. Around midnight, they reached a dirt service road that would lead them closer to base. Relief washed over them. The open road gave them a chance to pick up speed and put distance between themselves and the deeper woods. Adam glanced back several times, half expecting to see the creature step onto the road in pursuit, but nothing appeared. By about 0200, they reached an outlying guard post. The Marines on duty seemed puzzled to see them so jumpy. Crisp gave them a quick summary. They had encountered something large in the swamp that did not look like any ordinary animal. The guards exchanged looks, not sure what to think, but they let them through. When they finally returned to their barracks, everyone felt exhausted. Crisp filed a short report stating that the team had run into unidentified wildlife and recommended further investigation. Adam wrote down his notes, describing footprints, the smell, the noises, and the visuals. He left out personal speculation, sticking to facts. The next morning, they were called in for a briefing with a higher-ranking officer. The officer listened but seemed skeptical, suggesting it could have been a large alligator or a bear with mange. The unit's leadership decided to treat it as a potential wildlife issue. They told Crisp and Adam that base security or local wildlife officials might look into it, but no immediate action was planned. Over the next few days, Adam tried to settle back into his routine. He led physical training sessions, did gear checks, and tried not to dwell on the event. He felt a mixture of relief and frustration. Part of him was glad no one got hurt, but another part felt they were leaving a real threat unaddressed. The men who were with him avoided talking about it outside their own group. They didn't want to be seen as paranoid or telling tall tales. Still, rumors spread. Some Marines heard about the incident and joked about the swamp monster. Others wanted details, but Adam only gave general answers. One afternoon, Adam ran into Sergeant Phelps, the one who had mentioned local folklore. Phelps asked him outright if they'd seen something real or if it was a case of nerves. Adam said he saw it clearly enough to know it wasn't a standard gator or anything he recognized. Phelps looked uneasy, but nodded, saying he'd keep an eye on the area when he did range checks. He advised Adam not to let the rumors get out of hand unless he had solid evidence. A week went by without more sightings. Training continued. Adam tried to focus on his next set of qualifications. He also reviewed his photos of the footprints and found them unsettling. One image showed a print next to a boot for scale. Whatever made that impression had a wide foot with 3 distinct toes. The base's wildlife experts looked at the photo and proposed that it might be a misread of overlapping tracks from different animals. Adam didn't argue, though he didn't believe that explanation. Later, Crisp was given orders for another nighttime exercise in a different sector of the base. Adam was assigned again, with the idea that they needed more practice in demanding environments. This area had fewer swamps, but was still thickly wooded. They went out with a larger group this time, 10 Marines total. In the back of his mind, Adam worried they might run into the creature again, but he also wondered if it stayed near water. The new area was more inland with rolling terrain and no major waterways except a few small creeks. They set up camp that first night without incident. The forest was typical for the region. Pines and oaks, dry undergrowth, scattered wildlife. It almost felt routine again. But at around 0200, a Marine on sentry duty woke Adam. The Marine said he heard clicking noises and saw a tall shape move in the tree line. Adam grabbed his gear and quietly checked the perimeter. The rest of the group stayed back, waiting for instructions. After a few minutes of scanning the woods, Adam smelled that same fishy odor. Immediately, he felt a chill. This was far from the marsh. Why would that smell appear here? He signaled to Crisp, who joined him with another Marine. They fanned out a short distance, flashlights off, trying not to reveal their position. Adam caught a quick flash of eyeshine in the distance, then it vanished. The clicking sound echoed again, but it was hard to pinpoint the exact direction. After about 15 minutes, the smell faded, and the woods fell quiet. They returned to camp. The Marines whispered among themselves, asking if it could be the same creature. Crisp said they couldn't jump to conclusions, but his tone suggested he believed it might be. In the morning, they did a sweep of the area. They found flattened grass and branches snapped at odd heights, but no clear footprints. There was no real proof. The rest of the day went smoothly, with no sightings. That night, they planned a simple movement drill. The group split into 2 squads to practice pincer movement. Adam's squad circled north, Crisp's squad went south, and they agreed to meet in a clearing. At about 22:30, Adam's squad approached the clearing. The place was quiet. A breeze rustled the pines and the moon was out, giving them a decent view. Crisp's squad was nowhere to be seen yet. As they waited, Adam felt a familiar tension in the air. The men fidgeted. Then a low croak sounded from the opposite side of the clearing. Everyone froze. They saw movement behind some trees. Something crouched low, then rising taller than any average person. Adam's heart pounded. He raised his flashlight, which revealed a shape with dark, scaly skin and a broad torso. The eyes glowed faintly from the reflected light. It made a deep hiss, and the men reacted on instinct, switching on their lights and shining them in that direction. The creature whipped around and darted back into the tree line with surprising speed. They heard it crashing through undergrowth, heading away from the clearing. Within moments, Crisp's squad arrived, alerted by the noise. They found Adam's team standing with lights pointed at the trees. They reported seeing the creature again, describing it similarly. Crisp, trying to stay calm, told them all to regroup and stay alert in case it returned. The rest of the night was quiet, but the tension never left. They cut the exercise short and headed back at first light. Back at the base, Crisp and Adam reported the sightings to their commanding officer. The higher-ups seemed torn between taking them seriously and maintaining that it could be an unknown animal, like a large reptile out of its usual habitat. No one wanted to instigate a large-scale search for something that might not exist. The official response was that they would keep an eye on that training area and recommend caution. After that, the Marines were rotated to different tasks, and Adam found himself assigned to routine-based duties again. Days turned into weeks, and the creature's presence stayed mostly in rumor form. Adam did hear about a training company that reported strange tracks in the mud, but no confirmed sightings. Some local civilians claimed to have seen something odd near a creek, but that story was never verified. Adam felt a mixture of relief and unease. He didn't want another encounter, but he also disliked the sense of unfinished business. The memory of those glowing eyes and the creature's raw presence stuck with him. About a month after the second encounter, Adam went on leave for a few days. He traveled to see his parents and tried to relax. He found himself hesitating to describe the events in detail. He mentioned weird animal sightings, but he left out specifics. Even as he did, he sensed how unbelievable it all sounded. He had photos of footprints, but they weren't conclusive. The more he talked about it, the more he felt like he was recounting a story nobody would accept. His parents listened politely, but he could tell they thought it might be an overblown tall tale. When Adam returned to Camp Lejeune, he learned that new safety protocols had been introduced for nighttime training. There were guidelines about traveling in larger groups and reporting unusual wildlife sightings. Privately, Crisp told him these measures were because of the creature. Officially, the base said it was just a general update of procedures. Adam couldn't help but suspect that leadership wanted to avoid panic and keep things quiet. People kept seeing something, but no one had gotten a clear photo or had a documented incident severe enough to warrant a major investigation. Not long after that, Adam was assigned to a final field exercise before he was due for some advanced training off base. This exercise was a multi-unit operation, with a bigger presence in the same swampy areas where they had the first sighting. The plan was to secure certain zones, set up observation posts, and practice tactical maneuvers at night. Adam was in charge of a small team again, but this time they had support from other squads nearby. In total, about 30 Marines were out in that stretch of wilderness, spread across different checkpoints. Everyone carried blank ammo for the drill, but the base had also told them that wildlife encounters might be a risk. They were urged to stay alert. The first night passed without any unusual activity. Adam's team set up in a dry patch among pines, and the only animals they heard were nocturnal birds and the occasional deer. On the second night, they were scheduled to move closer to the marsh. As they approached, the familiar swamp smells returned. The ground was soft, and they heard frogs and insects in the distance. A few times, Adam thought he picked up that fishy odor, but it was faint and could have been the natural smell of the swamp. By midnight, they were in position at an observation post near a waterway. The moon was high, lighting the surface of the water in patches. While scanning the area with binoculars, Adam spotted movement along the shore. Something tall moved between cypress knees, stepping carefully. He couldn't make out details, but the silhouette looked like the thing he had seen before. Broad shoulders, hunched slightly forward. He quietly told the other Marines to watch. One by one, they tried to see it. Most saw only the shape, but that was enough to confirm they weren't alone. They decided to stay hidden and observe, hoping to get a clearer look. Over the next hour, the figure moved along the shore. Sometimes it crouched, as if inspecting the water or searching for food. The distance was too great to see its face, but its outline matched the reports of a reptilian or amphibious form. At one point, it leaned forward, and they heard a low, croaking sound. Then it disappeared behind a cluster of trees near the bank. The men felt a jolt of fear, realizing it might be heading in their direction. Adam told them to remain in place, keep quiet, and see if it approached. Suddenly, they heard a loud splash and the creature's hissing noise. The watery echoes made it hard to tell its exact location. Then it emerged roughly 30 yards from their post, half out of the water. One Marine switched on a flashlight, and for a few seconds, they saw it up close. The creature had large, reflective eyes and a wide mouth. Its skin appeared scaly, with some ridges along its spine. It stood on two powerful legs, with webbed, clawed feet. Its chest rose and fell with each ragged breath. The creature turned its head, noticing the light, and let out a sharp, guttural sound. The Marine turned off the flashlight on instinct, but the creature already knew they were there. They heard it moving through the water, getting closer. Adam signaled for them to retreat into a thick patch of bushes to avoid direct confrontation. They did so, quietly, but quickly. A few heartbeats passed, and they heard the creature's wet footsteps squelching on the bank. Leaves rustled as it moved. It let out another hiss, and the men held their breath. One Marine gripped his rifle even though it only had blanks. Nobody wanted to imagine what would happen if it charged. After an agonizing minute, the steps moved away. Adam risked a slow look around the bush and saw the creature heading downstream. It moved on land with a strange shuffle, arms held low as though balancing itself. Once it was far enough away, Adam signaled everyone to pull back. They spent the rest of the night on high alert, scanning every direction. The creature never returned to that exact spot, but the tension stayed with them until morning. When dawn broke, they radioed the other squads, asking if anyone else had seen unusual wildlife. A few reported hearing strange croaks or seeing shapes in the water, but no direct sightings that matched Adam's description. By midday, the entire unit was exhausted. Command decided to wrap up the exercise early, citing safety concerns and the risk of unexpected wildlife. The official reason in the report was complications due to local fauna. Back at the base, higher-ups asked for statements. Adam and several Marines explained in clear terms that they had encountered a large amphibious or reptilian creature. They described its size, posture, sounds, and the strong smell. The commanding officer listened but appeared guarded. He told them that base security and possibly local authorities would look into it. Adam got the sense that they wanted to avoid stirring up a public story or media attention. They took the statements and said they'd consult wildlife experts. In the weeks that followed, Adam heard nothing more about a formal investigation. Rumors floated around that some officers met with local game wardens, but no official results were announced. Some Marines believed the creature was real, while others thought it was an urban legend fueled by stress and imagination. A few said it could be an escaped exotic animal, though no one provided proof. Adam held on to his first-hand experiences. He knew what he saw, and so did the men who were with him. But without solid evidence, like clear photos or a captured specimen, nobody could expect a definitive conclusion. Adam's routine shifted to other duties, and eventually he got orders for specialized training off base. He packed his gear, said goodbye to friends, and left Camp Lejeune for his new assignment. On his last day, he walked by the marshy areas one more time, thinking about everything that had happened. He felt uneasy, leaving the mystery unresolved. The footprints, the hissing, the eyes, they all stayed vivid in his mind, but he had done what he could by reporting it and documenting the clues. He wasn't sure if the command would ever publicly acknowledge the creature's existence, but he hoped the new safety protocols would keep people aware. Some months later, Adam spoke with Crisp by phone. Crisp said there were no more major sightings, at least none that were officially logged. A couple of Marines had reported odd sounds in the swamp, but nothing as concrete as what their team saw. Crisp believed the creature was still out there, living in the deep marshes, wary of human presence. Adam agreed, feeling that its intelligence and stealth were too developed for it to get caught easily. After that call, Adam tried to move on. He focused on the tasks in front of him. He rarely shared the full story with anyone because he learned that most people either dismiss it or turn it into a joke. Still, he kept the memories and the photos of those footprints, knowing they were real. Sometimes at night, he replayed the scenes in his head, the wet scales in the flashlight's beam, the hiss echoing in the swamp, the fishy stench that lingered in the air. None of it felt made up. It was too vivid, and too many others had witnessed it with him. He never did figure out exactly what that creature was. He only knew that he saw something no one had ever described to him in any training manual or wildlife guide. It had power and intelligence, moving through the swamp like it was its own territory. Part of Adam wanted answers, but another part was glad he got away unhurt. He worried that the creature might harm someone unprepared, but he also suspected it wanted to avoid humans. Maybe it was just defending its habitat. Maybe it had lived there for years, hidden in the wetlands, only emerging when startled. In the end, Adam learned that some questions remain open, especially when institutions choose not to dig too deep. Cryptid stories rarely come with absolute proof. People hesitate to accept evidence that doesn't fit normal expectations. Adam never felt fully at peace about it, but he accepted that his role was just to report what he saw and then follow orders. He was a Marine, not a monster hunter. After everything that happened, Adam's reflection was simple. He kept his conclusions simple to keep his mind from going crazy. Basically, he just told himself that he encountered something unusual that left him shaken. He hoped the base would take steps to keep everyone safe. And though he still had moments of doubt, he trusted his own eyes and the memories of that night. He knew what he saw, and so did the others who were with him. That would have to be enough for now, as long as no one gets hurt.